Good morning. My name is Anthony Rhoda, Member of Parliament for Nipissing-Timiskaming and also Speaker of the House of Commons. In 1992, the Government of Canada designated October as Women's History Month, marking the beginning of an annual month-long celebration of the outstanding achievements of women and girls throughout Canadian history. And what we've been doing in Nipissing-Timiskaming is highlighting some women who have made a big difference and are making a big difference within our riding. Today, we have the honor of having Chief Shelly Moore-Frappier, the recently elected Chief of the Temagami First Nations. Good morning, Shelley. How is everything going? And welcome to this conversation.
Oh, miigwech, and good morning to you. So in light of your new role in the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank you and your constituency office for reaching out and providing the space for me in my new role as Gima of Temagami First Nation to sit and have this conversation with you. I think, though, at this time I'd be remiss if I did not take this opportunity as an Anishinaabe Kwe of influence to acknowledge the violence happening to our Mi'kmaq sisters and brothers on the East Coast and the inaction to stop it through the RCMP. It is a gross example of how willful ignorance can lead to violence. But I'd also like to thank you in your role, Mr. Speaker, to expedite the emergency debate which took place in the House of Commons last night, because as I understand it, that was your call, so chimigwech. I think this is a prime example of how regional education has a role in creating deeper understanding of place and relationship to place, whether you are a settler or an Indigenous person. So I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that, and before we go further. So
miigwech for acknowledging that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I mean, education is a very big thing, and I think the more we know about each other, the more we can work together. And I think that's probably the biggest problem that we have in the world is ignorance of each other, and getting to know each other better opens the doors and shows that really we're all the same. There's really we have much more in common than we have that separates us. So thank you again for bringing that up and acknowledging the work that's going on. Your new position as chief, maybe just tell us a little bit about what that entails. I know it's new in the process, but how does that affect you, and what exactly do you have in mind?
Absolutely. I think that it's 50 days new, so it is quite new. So in my role, I think that in governance, there's so many different pillars of governance that to take into consideration. I come with a lot of experience in education. That's my background, and I think that I bring that with me in everything that I do, and I think that that's exactly how I want to move forward as I lead in for Temagami First Nation, is to bring community along with me and us as Chief and Council to understand the issues that are facing us and that how we're going to move forward together. So that's a big piece of how I want to govern and how I want to keep our citizens informed. So
one of the things that has come up is we look at your history and how you got to where you are. I noticed that you were Indigenous Director of Indigenous Studies and Sharing and Learning Center, as well as Academic Vice President of Indigenous Programs at Laurentian University. How does that lead you to where we are now? And if you can maybe give us an idea of how that's affected who you are now.
Okay. I would even go before that. I would start with my educational journey. When I started, well, I'm going to date myself now. But when I started university, it was actually the summer of the Oka crisis, and it was right after our own road blockades and asserting our rights as well. So it was a very impressionable time that I started my educational journey, and I started at Laurentian University and went into the Native Human Services program, which is an Indigenous social work program. And I think that's where lights really started to come on for me when I started to understand things like Aboriginal title and looking at Indigenous governance in a different way. From there, I went on to do a master's degree at U of T, and then and then eventually a BEd, and looking at working at Laurentian University in the capacity of counselor coordinator at that time. Relationships, I think, is key, and maintaining meaningful relationships is and holding people to task about meaningful relationships, I think, is how people understand how I work, and want to engage and know that it's coming from a good place. So, yeah.
Very good. No, and one of the other things that I find very important to me, and I'm very happy to see your background is an education background, being able to teach others and set an example that way, how you've gone through and you've actually gone through higher education. And I know it's not always easy for people. I think we talked about this before, where I was on Bear Island one time, and probably one of the best, the best thing that I found that anywhere in my career was there was different people who got up on stage and gave their life story, whether they were a plumber, whether they were an electrician, whether they were a doctor or a lawyer or whatever they did. They told their story about how they were children on Bear Island and weren't quite sure where they were going. And I know it really comes to play with Indigenous people, but it comes to play with a lot of young people who are really trying to find their way. And what it allowed young people to do is to see someone who was successful, someone who had made their life, and see themselves in that person. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, what a great idea, because sometimes as a child you think, oh, I can never do that, or you're your own worst enemy, regardless of your background or where you come from. And this was a great story. And if you can comment a bit on that, on your own, if you've had any mentors who have allowed you to say, no, I can do that, and I'm not going to bring myself down.
One person who, and this is kind of sounds cliche, but it was a teacher in grade 4, and Mrs. Evans pulled me aside, because at that time our school only went up to grade 4. Then you had to go to another school. But I remember her pulling me aside and just saying, Shelley, you can do anything you want to be, and when I see you later in life, I want to know that, at that time I think she said that you became an astronaut, or that you did whatever you wanted to do. And it's amazing how that has kind of that record has played in my head many times, when I thought, what am I doing here? When I was even when I was signing up for registering for my master's courses at U of T, and I was like, I can't, just feeling overwhelmed and feeling I can't do this. What am I? I'm a fraud. Why am I here? That kind of thing. That record kind of plays in my head, and saying, no, you've got this, and that. So I think that I can credit her for a lot of instilling that esteem inside of me. I think that there were older cousins who went to school that I saw, and as well as another mentor of mine, Cheryl Partridge, who was a year ahead of me, always kind of encouraged me and said, yeah, you've got this. So I think that mentors are really important. Like I said, they're not always the people you think they're going to be, but they're really important in the different times and different places in your life. And as far as regional education, I think that I am a huge supporter of regional education. And not just for Anishinaabe, because I know that I think that it also has to go into our provincial school systems as well. I think that there is a place for that, working with, understanding your position in the place that you live, and understanding the real history, or the history from especially our lens, because that's the history that hasn't been told yet in any kind of real way and meaningful way. So I think that that is critical, I think, for us to move forward, is to have that understanding, to write that history, and to have that understanding. So, yeah.
Well, we're limited in our time, so I just want to thank you for joining me this morning. Any last words that you'd like to say before we leave?
Just miigwech for the opportunity and creating that space for us to have this conversation, and that using your own place and power to give me some space. So miigwech.
Miigwech to you, and miigwech for joining us this morning. And I want to remind everyone again that October is Women's History Month in Canada, and let's celebrate all the women who are out there who helped make our past what it is, get us to where they are, but let's not forget to celebrate the women who are here today and are making a better future for us. Miigwech, and thank you to everyone.